tonight. I know it's wet and rainy and cold out there, so we really appreciate you being here. Thanks, Craig and Bill, for a great presentation. I'd also like to present Fred Schebesta, co-founder of Finder.com. Welcome, Fred. So hopefully we can have you come here present another night.
Yeah, that'd be cool. How do we move?
Direct from New York.
Yeah.
Extended stay in New York, mind you.
I don't know how we're going to make this. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Welcome, guys. Yeah, just come back from New York. Trader, we were like crushing a bit of New York as well. Craig, all right. I'm like calling him Trader.
You were doing some business there, not just partying?
Yeah, no, we're Finders in the US now. So we've got 20 people over there. We've just, it's really growing. It's a big business now. Not as big as Australia, but definitely going to be a real thing.
Yeah. And you're at Consensus, was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the buzz there for you?
So I think Consensus really actually scared me. I got really scared because I saw a whole lot of projects really just shilling stuff which is not real, and that scared me beyond belief. Then it took me a while to realize that there was just so many people there, but eventually once you realize there are some real projects out there are some real things happening, but there was just so much promise and fantasial discussion about things which are never going to happen, and it literally just freaked me out.
So what's an example of a fantastical idea?
I've seen I'm not going to, like, everyone's got their projects and maybe they're going to work, so I'm not going to, like, tear down anyone's project, but I was just genuinely scared. But then, and we were supposed to have a big rise. That's normally Consensus every year. You had a bit of a rise in the market. Traders not going to like this, but we didn't see that. We saw the opposite, right? And I think that was because everyone got really scared. Normally you have, real things doing, all sorts of stuff and updates and things like that. But I've never seen so much shilling. I think I remember seeing one guy get actually called out as a scammer, like publicly, like screamed out of Consensus. Like, it was freaky. I was just like, wow, this is full on, right?
And did he back down or did he keep going?
Yeah, he just left. Yeah, and the other guy got kicked out as well, but unfortunately, because he didn't have a ticket. But but New York was good because I only went and saw one talk, and the one talk I saw was about OTC, and obviously we're working really hard on that right now. But the actual best value was the people that we met outside of the events. So all the people doing amazing projects, all the people actually, making this whole industry work, actually changing it, putting in the custodianship, banks that are actually, building crypto teams, which is the new thing as well. A lot of people just can't get banked, which is really difficult.
Can you explain to the attendees what OTC means?
So OTC is over the counter. It's like a stockbroker, really. So, you speak to us, we give you a price, we lock in that price, then you settle the trade. So like you deal with a stockbroker.
Rather than going straight to the exchange.
Correct,
okay.
Right. And it tends to be for bigger trades, so big volumes. That works pretty well.
Okay, cool. So, Craig, you're at Consensus. Did you guys get to party together?
What goes on tour stays on tour.
Yeah, we were really conservative. We hung out at the library.
Look, I was so busy most of the time. I actually saw you in the Australia part, but I didn't get to say hi. I mean, my whole New York Consensus event was a bit of a whirlwind. We were inundated with guests. We went there for guests. We went there to do a lot of things for a lot of people, and ourselves included. And we just got, literally, as I was on the plane, I got a text message from my podcast manager who resides in New York, because the show is domiciled in New York. And she said, we just hit #1 in the US business, the whole section. And I'm sitting on a plane about to take off. I'm like, oh, what's going to happen now? And we got there, and we had between 6 and 9 people a day. Now, let me tell you something about New York, right? You want to film in New York on the street, you can forget about that. we had we had this wonderful, beautiful little library in my hotel, but you couldn't just hire each other. How much will it cost to hire it? You can't do that, sir. What if I was getting married? You can't do that, sir. I can't even do the fake marriage thing. But we had to run around New York trying to find really cool cinematic, good place to interview people. We kept getting kicked on from pillar to post. So it was really full on. You do that for 9 hours of a day, going from guest to guest. And let me tell you something. You know, because you're doing it right now. When you interview somebody, you haven't got any notes because you're standing there with a camera on you. You got to think on your feet. Now, I told you before, I'm not a blockchain expert. I'm not an expert in anything but trading and probably talking. Yeah. So it's really, really hard work. So by the end of the day, I was totally exhausted. I went to two things. I went to your dinner at, was it Beauty in Essex? And I went to your party, which I remember entirely. So yeah, it was a really full-on event. It was a great event, and to be honest with you, I ran around Consensus for about 2 hours, getting some video stuff because it was so full-on. One thing I want to say to you, Fred, well, no, not to you. I want to say to you, the audience, but I want to pick up on what you said, I should say, is each year you can't put the Origin on here. You can't do the pre-show here, mate. You can't do that. How am I meant to focus? This is like the oh, mate versus mate, stage for.
Mate, you've had your turn.
So Bill, what was your take on Consensus?
I guess a couple of things, and I spoke to DJ about this a bit earlier, is, and I'm looking at, yeah, I'll tell you in a sec, but first of all, the polarisation in ICO issuance of the characters involved. There is so many shady characters, it is unbelievable. There is so many two-bit advisors, it is unbelievable. Every man and his dog seems to have an exchange these days, and they all want to market make for you and do a lot of things like that. But on the actual issuance side, you've got people who want you to go out with 70% bonuses, 100%, all this sort of crap, and usually they're crap deals. You've got people right on the other side who are saying to go out and do something with zero bonus, yet they want to take 10 or 20% of your token issuance prices, coins are on issue. So, I don't know which one's more ethical than the other. Or there's this happy medium in the middle somewhere where for your pre-sale, for your people like that who are supporting you before you get to your main sale, that you do actually look after them and give them something for committing, and usually in a bit more volume. And I think that brings in the hedge fund side of it, the institutional side of it, which are becoming more and more, and so many more family offices are there. And I've got Damien Cullen, guy I went to school with here, who's a private advisor. So many more people like that coming in and just having a look at it. Whether they go into the ICO issuance themselves or more go into the fund managers, I think there's a lot of room for fund managers to go out there. But then the diversity of the people, again, you come back to and what's there.
Are you finding that, was there a frenzy there, or are people a bit more wary about these fantastical projects?
Oh, there was a lot of crap, yeah. There's no two ways about it. And there wasn't a buzz around any real deal that I saw. I didn't see any new wonderful, I mean, Phantom probably came afterwards, and there's been a big buzz about Phantom. But it is protocol-based, a lot of it. A lot of people want to see protocol-based ICOs, and Phantom was one of them, so it did extremely well. I think the talk was all about security and utility and stuff like that. I think we did that last time on the panel. I think we heard a lot about most things will become security and security issuance and be done a certain way. I don't necessarily disagree, other than we got our advice and we're a utility, and given I'm taking a lot of this risk as CEO that comes back and burns me, I'm happy selling it in most places as a utility token, because it's a utility token and it's not a security, and that's a risk I'm willing to take personally. Whether they come after you after the fact will be yet to be seen, but yeah, that was a lot
Bill,
of talk.
You mentioned platforms were kind of hot. Where do we get to a point where there's too many platforms? What are your thoughts there?
Look, the speed of the blockchain is the biggest thing, and usage and stuff like that, and anything that makes it all quicker and work better. You got to get to the PayPal level with your payments and what else have you. I don't know exactly how to do that or what's going to do that, but I'll give you one tidbit we had from one of the major banks who were over there about there. They still rated Bitcoin as the best thing they've ever seen. To give you an idea of how good Bitcoin technology is and the proof of work and everything behind it, they just said, look, that's the perfect solution. How you make that quicker or how you go from there is yet to be seen, but that gives you a bit of an idea of the thought process.
Yeah, so I want to talk a bit about this because I'm a little bit worried about protocols right now. And I think if you had an index of protocols today, it's probably on an upswing. But my forecast is if you go back to the internet, right, and have a look at how the internet formed. So let's go back to TraderCobb's concept. We're in the 90s, I'm a 96er. I think we're in 96. But if you remember, like, when you had dial-up and the things that you could do, so what were the applications you could do back then? Like, you didn't really need heaps of speed. Like, you could kind of get by until there were applications like video and things like that. You were like, oh, this dial-up's not going to work. And so if you think of that swing, right, so you've got the swing of dial-up and then the applications that formed. Then you've got broadband and the applications that came after that, so YouTube, Facebook, things like that. And then we had mobile internet come, and now all the applications came, right? So if you go back, I think what happens is you get investments in infrastructure, so protocols and all those kind of things, and then you get dApps. So my forecast is in the second half of this year, when we get all these protocols launched, you'll have huge amounts of bandwidth available, huge amounts of blocks, huge amounts of transaction speed. You're going to see another flourish back to the dApp scene. We're going to see all of them come back. And so the projects, I think they're going to be big. This is not financial advice. This is nothing to do with financial advice, but I'd have a look, go back to the projects that were big 6-9 months ago that were applications. Those applications that were struggling because of transaction speed and things like that, they were great projects, they were great ICOs, and they're actually great ideas. Again, I think there are a lot. I don't know how to say exactly without giving financial advice. For example, my opinion could be.
Anyone here tonight knows if they ever buy anything tonight, they've got 5 days to.
No, it's just my opinion. So if you go back, okay, so the classic case of, say, CryptoKitties as an example. If it wasn't on Ethereum, it wouldn't have crashed and things like that. But if you look at some of the other applications that were trying to come out back then, and some of the application ideas which need high transaction speed, like you look at some of these things, in the reality, they're not going to work on Ethereum. So if you zoom back in time right now and think of the ICOs that were big back then, I think you're going to see these protocols come out, they're going to go live, and those applications are going to work really, really well. So potentially gaming could work. Gaming was just, I just don't think it's that feasible. Like, real-time games is just not going to happen. I think you could potentially see that with with EOS or things like that that are coming out. And that's my forecast. So we're probably going to see, where are these protocols going to go? I think they're going to go essentially to near zero cost. And the reason for that is, if you remember when we first were on the internet, we paid about $5 an hour. Remember paying $5 an hour? And you were like, oh, it's loading and I'm paying $5. It's like I've got to reconnect. It's unbelievable, right? So $5 an hour. How much do you pay for internet right now? You pay what, $50 a month? So you're paying what, 0.0001 of a cent per hour, whatever it is. And you can probably download as much as you want. And realistically, so the cost of internet and the profit margin in that has obviously gone down. They need mass audience, but adoption goes up as well. So these protocols and things like that, what you're going to see is transaction costs and transaction fees, all those kind of things, and then these network effects everyone's talking about, they're all going to go down to near close to zero. That's going to be an unbelievable market. Like, this idea of Ethereum and the cost you pay there for what you get, I shouldn't say this, but I'm forecasting interesting times for Ethereum unless they adapt. Literally going to be major troubles. That's the theory of what it's going to sound like. I think, the other thing I'm really worried about and something which we do need is interoperability. Now, my forecast with the protocols on that is literally, I think interoperability is a great idea, but it's extremely high risk for this reason. Let's imagine you have some Bitcoin and I have some Ethereum, and we want to basically create a transaction which applies to both chains. In other words, at one point, this chain has to hold custodianship of 2 coins, both coins. In other words, holding up both blockchains and waiting for them. And if one thing goes wrong with that thing in the middle, you've suddenly screwed up the entire, the whole situation going on. You're basically talking about getting two nice roads and then just dropping in another freeway over the top of it. Like, it's really high risk. And the risk behind that whatever that chain is that actually talks between it is got to be the most secure thing you've ever seen. My forecast on that's going to take a lot longer than we are today. And I think that's sort of, where that sort of stands.
Good point. Good point to cut off here. Sorry about that, guys. Let's cross to the audience for a question. Have we got a mic on this one? Awesome. Who's got a question? I think there's plenty of burning questions. We've got about 20 minutes to go, so let's just get some questions out of this audience. Thank you. Sorry about that. You're right, gentlemen?
That's fine.
Just a quick one. It's Matt, yeah?
Bill.
Oh, sorry.
Bill at the end.
Hey, just jumping back to what you were talking about. Can you just really quickly sum up the differences between your platform and, say, something like Power Ledger?
I guess this does come down to like a protocol approach. So we're trying to say we're building energy protocols. We're trying to say you've got to build the platform first. Power Ledger is just concentrating on microgrids. All good, and they've got good technology and everything else behind them. And that's where, bit to what Fred was saying, we purposely did that because that fits in with the protocol market at the moment where it's quite hot. When you look at single use cases, which is the apps, the kitties and stuff like that, will they come back in vogue? I think if you were trying to do Power Ledger today and you just went out with that, you probably wouldn't get the same buzz as what you've got. And we're seeing WePower as well, which is just fractionalisation of solar. So within the energy space, you're going, oh, look, they're all good. They're all good projects. But it's almost like project financing. It's almost like, oh, okay, well, that's good, but you're not changing the world. That doesn't do anything for me personally to wanting to disrupt the energy market. It's good, and from a finance background, yeah, great, but not until you get that going from that solar farm direct to retail are you really making a difference.
That's it. Congratulations. Question from the audience for Hugh, I think. Fred, are you ready?
Fred, hi, John. Curious to know, when you speak about protocols, fat protocols, what's going to happen? How's business going to get engaged with this? Because the way I look at it, business can't engage unless they're dealing with a regulated network. They need confidential identified use. What's going to happen in the real world, which is going to drive adoption?
Yeah, so I think... So are you talking about, I guess, the difference between private blockchains because of corporate use, or are you talking about public blockchains, or...
I'll check one too. We're live over here back on this block. Are we live on the block? Yes, we are live on the block. Back to you, John.
Thanks, DJ. I'm speaking about solutions rather than pigeonholing them into private or public. I'd argue a case it's possible to have a public blockchain that deals with the issues you're describing. But let's not divide them. Let's try and understand how there might be a world of decentralized commerce.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Like, protocols can do that. I think it's like TCP/IP, right? Like, that's how it powers the internet. Small little packets move all over the internet. They get split up and they get sent over to people's computers all around the world, right? The same thing with protocols. And if you're talking about transactions, to me it's the same thing, right? We can have a public internet. We can have a public blockchain as well. I don't see any reason why we can't. And we're already currently doing commerce.
Great question over here. Please, let's move that straight on.
Okay, thanks, guys. So two questions, really. One, for all of you that were at Consensus, you mentioned that protocol-based ICOs were quite hot. I confess that's a term that I'm not entirely familiar with, so I'd love to understand, where you see that. And the other one then was, I understand that Consensus this year had quite a number of the institutional players turning up. I'd be interested what your sense was as to what they were actually doing.
Yeah, that's good. I'll just start with protocols. So when I talk about protocols, I think of things that host applications. So when Bill builds his system on Ethereum would be the protocol, and your system would be built, I'm assuming, with an ERC20. Obviously, the application itself is probably not on Ethereum itself for all those privacy reasons, but I think essentially it's the thing that hosts these applications or hosts these transactions, if that makes sense. So they have coding languages that you can actually write onto it, so you can write smart contracts. Anything like that, that's how I see that. But like Bitcoin itself has rootstock, so you can potentially see that as well as a smart or a protocol. But I think the rootstock itself is more the protocol, if that makes sense. I guess in terms of what were the instos doing,
Sniffing around.
yeah. So there are some crypto banks there. So Silvergate was there, Signature was there, Bank of Silicon Valley. They tend to be they're the leaders right now in terms of banking. There were like some major corporations, like Microsoft was showing off, IBM with its Hyperledger. Who else did we see? We saw. Actually, no, I think that was about it, really. Yeah, it wasn't.
All the legal firms. All the
Legal firms, yeah.
all the service providers.
PwC and those kind of guys. What were they doing? So they are laying the infrastructure to enable all the new applications, like I was talking about before, to be able to come about, and actually obviously getting those enterprise adoption and enterprise systems out there. I don't know if there's anything real or live out there. To me, that was all very future looking rather than here is something we've done, if that makes sense. Maybe there were NDAs or things like that. I think a lot of people are trying to find they've got their hammer and they're trying to find a nail, if that makes sense. That's how I felt.
Did you sign a few NDAs, Fred?
I did sign a few NDAs.
Oh, great. Now, let's all hear about those. Come on. What do we got? Mate,
Let's
you're
open
in
the
close
tin of
quarters
NDAs.
here. You're in close quarters. There's no financial advice being given. We've got the rugby coming on. Right, we've got security downstairs. You're amongst close friends. Most of these people, come on. Come on,
You
mate.
buy Fred a drink
Where are we
later,
on?
he'll
Where are
tell
we
you.
Maybe afterwards. How about afterwards?
So
We'll take
Craig,
a photo with the ball and then we'll have a talk about it afterwards.
so Craig, what was your perspective on blockchain protocols?
I interviewed a few. Look, don't forget, I'm not the tech dude, right? I'm not the guy who gets into the tech and nitty gritty. What I did notice, I think out of the 20 odd people, I think I interviewed 4 different protocols. And the different thing for me was to sort of look at it and go, my question was, what makes you different? And a lot of them struggled. Oh, well, we do this, this, and this. It's like, well, so does he. So does she. So does that why are you better?
A few of them are just forks of Ethereum anyway, right?
A lot of them would, you go, so they want to go into this whole conversation about the tech, and I'm like, look, that's just not my world, man. Like, we're not going there. I want to talk about your business. What is it? What makes you different? If we can look at a selling point, if you've got a business, you've got to have a unique selling point. If you want to stand out from the crowd, which is crowded, what makes you better? And a lot of them struggle to answer that.
Would you short an index of protocols right now?
Ooh. How many are in it, and what's the weighting? Keep EOS out of it, and keep EOS out of it, and a couple of others, and potentially. But I look at the charts, mate, so it's difficult to say.
Okay, great. Let's go back to the audience. I've got a question over here, and get your questions ready because I need some more out of the audience, please. These guys are talking far too much amongst themselves. There's one here quickly.
Hey guys, just because of the audience here, and we're talking generally about this space, I'd just like to get your thoughts on how would you go about running your own ICOs, and what are the processes that need to
So
take
let's throw to
place?
Bill, who's running his own ICO.
Great question.
It's
Good question.
Been a wonderful experience, I can tell you that, and there's nothing like going all the way down the rabbit hole, okay? And I'm in it big time now. It's bullshit that you can just put a white paper out and hope for the best. You need the right advice at the right time. And, well, we did originally. Yeah. But no, I think there's a lot to be learned about exactly what how many people actually got a project up, how many people got MVP, how many people have actually got a business case. And it depends what you're doing. If you're doing something on a protocol, Phantom have just proved you can get 150, 200 million by writing whatever they wrote, and there's good, smart people behind it, don't get us wrong, but that was a huge buzz. If you've got a project, the biggest thing now is whether you go security or whether you go utility, and are you an application, are you a business who's just now trying to do a security type issue because there's this massive pool of capital. There's this $350 billion worth of capital over there, and it's a hell of a lot easier dealing with them than dealing with the VC people, let me assure you. Yeah, it's simple as that, but you've got to make the use case.
Yeah, Fred. Oh,
I was just gonna.
No, Fred, go for it. Go for it.
I was just gonna say, I'm really keen to see this no CO movement, like no ICO movement. You've got projects like Ravencoin. You've got projects like Amovio that's just come out, which is the guy out of Rep who's just launched it straight to mainnet, no ICO. You've got Bitcoin itself. You've got real projects. I want to see that, to be honest. And then I might let's go for an ICO after that. Obviously, some projects can't do that. That's how I started Finderbot, right? I literally launched WordPress, wrote content, got connected people up, right, with banks, did SEO, right, got it listed on Google, blah, 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 blah. But they're real businesses. That's what I want to see. So that would be my advice to the room is build something on the blockchain or using the blockchain, build a real company, and then do an ICO. Because I think that's what people are really concerned about right now. There are so many Fantasial professors and dudes who have cracked space technology and stuff which I don't understand. But we're not actually there right now. We need applications. We need real life adoption. And in this room, there's probably 1 or 2 projects that's going to make that happen. And I encourage you to do that. Because if you remember back in time, there used to be the home computer club where Bill Gates hung out, Steve Jobs hung out, and they used to all sit around just like this, showing each other their projects, and they're bringing in their wacky computers and things like that. That's what's going to happen in this room. That's why I love being here, and I love everyone coming and participating, because this is what's going to make the future.
We love you.
Yeah.
We love you.
We'll throw to another question.
Love everyone here.
All right. So I've just got a quick question. Do you guys, mainly for TraderCobb, do you guys trade on news at all, or do you trade basically on technical analysis and that kind of stuff?
Totally.
Come on, duel it, mate.
Look out. Me, personally, I avoid anything other than what I know. Question is, do I trade news or just TA? I'm TA all the way. Rhymes, right? But factually, when I traded foreign exchange, commodity, stocks, bonds, all that sort of stuff, I remained true to the craft. I would trade, back then I would trade what I call windows, all right? So a window is when you've got an economic calendar that is available when you're trading traditional markets, so you know when NFE is coming out, you know when all these BOE, you know when statements, you know when things are happening. I wouldn't trade, if I was intraday trading, I wouldn't take a trade just before news, and I would very rarely take a trade just after news. I'd trade the windows in between. Now with crypto, it's more difficult to do that. I focus on TA exclusively.
And do you have an optimum number of cryptocurrency that you trade concurrently?
Well, trading's difficult when it comes to. It depends on your account size. There's a lot of things holding us back in this market at the moment. Liquidity is an issue. If you're trading the larger sizes, you want to get an exact fill. So if I'm trading and I want a very precise entry and a very precise stop loss, it can be sometimes difficult to do. I tend to work within the top 20, just because of liquidity issues. If I want to buy X amount of, EOS at this price, I know I can, because I'm going to trade on a top broker, and I won't use leverage a lot of the time. I love that. I don't need leverage. You can get a 20% move in a day. You don't need leverage. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with leverage, but I understand it because it's a double-edged sword. But you can go into these markets that have massive liquidity, and coin market cap, whether it's fact, fiction, I don't really care. It shows me where the volume is. It shows me what platforms I can trade. The thing is, I've got to trade across so many different platforms to get the liquidity that I need to take the trades, and that's why Fred's Operation OTC stuff, that can help in that regard. But liquidity is the issue. But I do tend to work within the top 10 to 20 for the most part.
All right, thanks.
Oh, just one sec. Did I just answer that from a technical perspective? He's a technical trader, so that's what you'd expect. If you're a fundamental trader looking at other things, buy the rumour, sell the fact on news is 9 times out of 10 going to get you where you are. But you also, are you a holder or are you a short-term day trader, and decide what you are. And that's where the technicals, you just got to respect the technical levels. You have to know them from that point of view. But something comes out, if you think you can be first to it, great. But more often than you're not. People already knew.
Okay, great. Question?
This question's for Bill. If regulation, you mentioned before, regulation's going to come to the market, how would a project like Enosi differentiate themselves from the other one if regulation's coming and everyone's worried about that?
Look, no matter what the project is, I think you've got to follow your KYC and AML. process. It's a given, and why wouldn't you? You know, God, you don't want to have people on your register or people involved who are fraudulent or, you know, whatever, you know. And it's hard to prove where a lot of this Bitcoin came from, so it does bring up its own issues. But as long as you run the right processes, as far as the security side is concerned, I'd much have rather done everything as a security issue because it's easier, other than when we talked about this last time, the cost, which the cost of doing a regular issue and then getting through ASIC and everything else like that, I've since learned you can take things to ASIC a bit easier. So I'd probably, I don't know whether we're a utility token, and I love, you talked about decentralisation before. I'm a fan of decentralisation. I'm a fan of the token and a utility notion of the token. Whether you could still do security,
don't get
royalties
excited.
and
We're
stuff
just
like
getting a little warm up, and we're still listening to the conversation.
I love security tokens that are royalties, and why I like royalties is because I don't have to worry about the profit and loss of some stupid buggers' accounting policies and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And I see that as the biggest. You know, you look at commodities. I know so many family offices that made so much friggin' money out of doing royalties. It's unbelievable. So I love that side of it. I love
What about
software.
these ones that are doing the equity play and get the tokens?
Again, you then distinguish
haven't
between
seen
an
many
equity
of.
reward and you're distinguishing between the token reward, and how do you divide them up, and do you bifurcate the two? I looked at that for a banking thing I looked at once, and it just gets hard, you know, to get the economics between the split between them. I'd rather a totally decentralised system. And so you ask where that comes from, you can do it. You can have governance which is totally decentralised. You can build these things as, the software is probably a great example where you can build something, make it open source and get paid for it now. That's brilliant, you know? But I'd rather do it as a security going forward, or some sort of utility token maybe, but issue it as if it was a security.
Awesome, we might wrap it up with one question for each panel member. Has anyone got a question for TraderCobb?
Yeah, so my opinion on that is...
What's your best trade at the moment?
There is one over there.
There's a trade setting up on EOS Ethereum. That's the only one. Well, it's set up.
Cobb, I'll just throw it out to you. So going back to the news thing, because obviously the traditional...
Hang on. I'll throw it out.
All right.
Sorry about that, Brad.
I'll go with it.
You all right? All good?
Yeah.
Get some ice, please. Get some ice for the members front row, please.
Alrighty. Let's hope we can catch like that in the night. Yeah. So TraderCobb, just for you. Going back to the original question about whether you trade on news, because obviously the art of currency trading is based on news, right? We can all acknowledge that. I mean, realistically
Can
speaking,
we?
Well, can we?
Question this is, Oscar, please, question.
Okay. If you're purely based on technical analysis, do you think there'll ever become a time where the markets become so efficient that news will be the thing that we trade on?
People trade off news all the time, man. Like it's a fact. I'm not denying that. It's just the way the world works. I just don't do it. There's two things. I can control me. I can control what I do, when I do, how I do it. What I can't control is what everybody else does. So picture it this way: if Trading FX, you'll have, there'll be a survey. There'll be 6,000 analysts that come in and they go, the way the news comes out and the way they do their economic reviews, they'll say 4,572 said this, 3,000, blah, blah, blah. And they'll do that and they'll go, guess what? You were all wrong. 2,564 analysts that have paid over $200,000 a year were wrong. I don't trust them.
Okay, I think you're going to, there's a great follow on. Question for Fred. Question for Fred from the audience.
What chance have I got of getting it right if they get it wrong? That's my point. That's why I trade the windows.
Fred.
Hey, Tim, how you going?
Yeah, good. Just from consensus, I mean, obviously you're on the OTC markets. Quick question. If the institutions are getting involved, they're going to be bulk buying, right? I'm hearing in the market rumours of big orders coming through. Are you seeing, as an OTC supplier, and also those you spoke in consensus, big buys coming in with the idea that they're buying low, selling high for the future?
So I can't comment on their strategy, but we are definitely seeing a lot of volume, a lot of trading going on, and it's not going through the markets, through the exchanges. That is, it is obviously changing hands, but we are seeing a lot of volume. And so some of the bigger desks as well, they have open 24/7 operations. So they have guys come in during the middle of the night. We're not there yet, Don't worry, Brad, we're not going to start doing that yet. But they're really ramping up, and they are getting more and more, definitely, we're seeing more and more orders and much more appetite coming in from people that you wouldn't have expected before and really want to take some exposure now. I think there are new buyers coming in, but you're right. I think they're not going through the exchanges. I think they're finding the wallets and all the getting money fiat in is quite difficult. But once you've got it in, you want to trade a big volume. I think you go through an OTC. That's how you get in.
Awesome. And final question tonight to our major sponsor tonight, for apart from the football. But anyone got a question for Bill? Oh, would you like the microphone?
When moon. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. So I'm going to wrap it up now. Oh, hang on, Tai.
So thanks, David, for organising such a great night and my request for wine. That was awesome.
Thank you.
And to our
My pleasure.
fantastic panel. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.